I think Kalen and Reece are not 100% fit.
Yeah.
So they're playing with niggling injuries. It's no coincidence that the Broncos are scoring points again on the back of Reece Walsh being back in the team.
Well, thanks for tuning in and joining us for our Round 17 edition of Queenslander, proudly brought to you with thanks to Tab, as we continue to soak up the mighty Maroons' victory in Game 2 in Perth to keep it alive, boys. How good was that win? It was nerve-wracking. It was a roller coaster ride the entire way through, but your emotions watching that.
Yeah, I think if Lockyer and me were saying that we never had any doubt, we were cool, calm and collected, our nose would start to grow for a considerable distance. But wonderful performance from the guys, did extremely well, called on each other multiple times throughout the course of the latter stages of the game. And I think they've built up a fair bit of confidence for the next game.
I think that's the tone of the people calling the game and the tone of the people in the stadium on the night at half-time just thought the game was over.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't the case because, we came out at half-time, I could see it. They dropped their intensity and, probably not having the experience of someone like Daly Cherry Evans out there, I knew that was going to be a potential problem, because, again, we're 20 points in front. You still need someone to take control of that game that's got experience at that level and know what to do. And I felt like we were guilty of looking at the scoreboard and taking the foot off the pedal. Yeah. So full credit to New South Wales. I always felt like they would come back into the game, but that was the last 10 minutes was nerve-wracking, Yeah,
I thought we had a little bit of an unusual last 30 minutes in the game. Usually when you get in front and you're in a position like that where you're feeling comfortably, the game's in your favour, you dictate terms. You make them play the game that you want them to play. And that'd be taking the ball from deep inside their own territory virtually on every occasion. So they really couldn't afford to gamble too much throughout the course of the second half. There was a little bit of that going on.
You mentioned the lack of experience in the halves with no DCE. One thing I noticed, a lot of the goal line restarts were short restarts for Queensland in the second half. Like, if you're up by 20, 14 or 12, surely you're kicking that long? Like, as playmakers, would you be wanting to do that so they at least have to truck it up for 2 or 3 plays?
Yeah, again, I don't think a lack of experience in the halves. I mean, Cameron's played a lot of games.
Yeah.
It was his 20th.
I just mean, so he's not used to doing drop kicks because Pappenhausen does it at Storm.
So probably from a game management perspective.
That's what I mean,
Tom's still learning his craft, learning his trade. So, look, I think coming out at halftime, up 20 points, 26 to 6, the mentality we should get to play 3 and in those conditions. Just hoik the ball down the other end of the field. Yeah. And just keep doing that because the scoreboard pressure will eventually tell on the opposition.
Yeah. I think Queensland teams have had the opportunity to do that on multiple occasions where that that's the best thing you can do. Kick it down the other end of the field, make them take a chance to run the ball long distance, and it certainly does make you feel a lot more comfortable about your chances for the outcome.
There was one in the first half, I thought of you, Lockyer. Munster kicked it, I think, on maybe tackle 2 or tackle 3, and it was almost a 40-20. It went right down the field. Like, you guys the last couple of years, you're like, if you have the momentum, just kick early, kick early, kick early.
Well, I remember off the back of that set, I think we forced an error.
Yeah.
So it's just that tactically, if they're on their own, the fullback, then you might get 3 or 4 down there. So you've dominated them play 1, and then the forwards have got to run back 50 metres to get behind the ball. Like when you're in front, it's one of the best things to do. But I probably didn't see enough of that in the second half.
Yeah. You know what I love? New South Wales are whinging about the referees. How good is that? We've done it previously. Game 2 last year, Ashley Klein didn't have a good game. We sucked it up, but all they're doing south of the border is complaining about the referees. How good is it?
Well, it's good.
Yeah.
You're just wasting your breath.
Yeah.
It's not going to change the result.
No.
Not at all. We're going to a decider.
That's right. Yeah. There's no Queensland referee on display that they can blame.
Yeah.
So it was delightful to hear that. It left obvious three Queenslanders very feeling very good about it. Every time they had an opportunity to have a whinge, moan, groan or complain, it was put into place.
Yeah, and one more round of NRL before the side for the decider is selected for Queensland. Do you sense any changes, Wal, if they're not injury forced? You got to reward the team that won game 2, or?
Yeah, well, I think so. But I really, would much prefer to wait to see how the guys go on the weekend, whether there are any injuries that we've got to take into consideration. I think the guys played very well. They've certainly done the job that was asked by the coach, and certainly, we can look at this and gain a fair bit of confidence. But we've got to remember that they put a bit of pressure on us towards the end of the game, and I think the Queensland guys need to be congratulated from there. But they've got to understand that that game's finished. We're going to the next one now. Not too much makes any difference, through the outcome of that game.
Well, I think the coach probably would analyse the second half more than the first half. Yeah. We did a lot of good things in the first half, played with intensity, played with intense. But when you're under adversity and things aren't going your way, that's when you get a bit of indication how well players are going. So I think, I know Bill, he'll watch the game, he's probably watched it a few times already, but he'll probably study that second half and understand, well, I know we weren't exactly on our game because of where we're at in the game in terms of score, but I think he would have learned a bit about his players.
Yeah, and it's always good to see how they react in different situations. You're right, Locky. How they reacted in the real pressure times, who were the ones that were volunteering to do the work, and they're the ones I know as a former captain, you always used to look for those guys, and if a name was mentioned in the discussions, you'd bring that forward to the selectors to say, these blokes, this bloke here, he worked his backside off. He just kept volunteering in the toughest of times when some other guys were just taking a little bit longer to get back on board to put their hand up and volunteer.
And probably the major point of contention will be fullback, Locky. Like, Ponga hasn't had his happiest series, wasn't helped by the conditions in Perth. It was really difficult with that rain pouring down. But now Reece Walsh has come back and he's been quite good. He was excellent in the back half of that Sharks game. Gets another game under his belt. Like, what do you think about that? Has Reece Walsh had enough game time?
I think Kalen and Reece are not 100% fit.
Yeah.
So they're playing with niggling injuries. And look, it's no coincidence that the Broncos are scoring points again on the back of Reece Walsh being back in the team.
Yeah.
But Kalen, I agree, the conditions weren't great for him in
Perth.
Perth. And look, there's always twists and turns in an Origin series, and it happens weekly, it happens daily. I think there's potentially a bit hinging on what happens this weekend.
Yep.
I thought he was very good last weekend. The way he was volunteering, he was going, searching for work. And I thought his positional play was the feature that stood out. He would look at the opposition, try and work out where there was an opportunity or a weakness, if there was one, and he'd go searching for that work. I was very impressed with his performance in that game.
Yeah. When we were over in Perth, I was doing the stories for 9 News in the Leader. We got some fans coming in. There was a guy from Port Hedland. He come up to me and he goes, "You're Queenslander?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I go for the Maroons. I want to see them win." He's like, "No, you're Queenslander." And then he was talking about the show. He goes, with Lockyer and Wally, he goes, "No, you're on Queenslander." So good to see that we've got fans over there in WA. So shout out to that bloke from Port Hedland who was down from the mines to come down and watch him at Optus Stadium. So, yeah, we're going global.
Did you say you're the lead role?
I think Lockyer said he's captain coach of the three-man team. So.
I think he thought that I'd been axed with Salty coming in off the bench to replace me. So
I heard the ratings are very good.
Yeah, I know. I'm fighting to keep my place for Origin 3 for the decider. But
trust your mates.
Yeah, but given it was one of those classic Queensland wins against all odds, where does it rank for you guys? Because that was the first time in a long time that Queensland had been that heavy outsiders. Like, to me, it had similar to the 95 vibes of, like, New South Wales acting like they've won the series already.
Well, I've always said a lot of Origin games are between the ears. One particularly in game 2, because one team knows they've got a second chance, one team knows they don't. And you'll very often find a reaction from the group that got beaten in game 1. And I was confident that we would play well and potentially they'd be a touch off their game. And look, we needed every point in the first half to get over the line. So, look, if we had have forfeited that score at half time by the end of the 80th minute, then we would be very disappointed right now. But we've got the job done. But yeah, look, I think backs against the wall, we always say that that's how we like it. We got the job done and now we've given ourselves an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with Locky there. And I think as former captains, I'm sure Locky would say the same things. You look at those that volunteer their services in a game and that do it almost relentlessly throughout the course of the game at the toughest times. And the way that we had plenty of guys doing enormous amounts of work in the toughest times, in the most difficult areas of the game. I thought that was fantastic from our guys. I must admit I did get nervous as the game progressed and started to think, I hope we can hang on here. And those in my company at the time said, yeah, of course they will. They're not going to give up their mates. They're Queenslanders. And good to see that role playing once again. But I think it was one of those games where the guys would have sat down at the end of the game and they would have been absolutely buggered at the end of the game, but they would have sat down and been very happy with what they managed to produce on the field for their coach, their teammates and all the Queenslanders that were watching.
I think the forward reshuffle paid off too. So essentially, didn't really drop any forwards bar Beau Fermor, who only played limited minutes in game 1. But Trent Loiero really held his own, starting in that middle to tie up that middle. And I thought Pat Carrigan was really strong coming off the bench, especially his first 2 hit-ups. So could you sense that really garnered a response from the forwards?
Well, I mean, the other guy, Capewell, he was...
Oh, yeah, forget him, yeah.
He was outstanding.
Mr. Reliable,
but, yeah, look, Trent does a great job at the Storm, obviously in a great system. He came out and he did his job in game 1. He was exceptional in game 2. And then the impact of your bench is so important at that level. It's important in every game, but at that level, to get impact off your bench is it's an important part of the outcomes of the game. And so when players get picked on the bench, and I know Paddy got taken out of the starting side, but his role, if not equal, is maybe even more important.
Yeah.
And so he did a great job in doing that.
Yeah, I was very happy with Capewell. Hard not to be. I was listening to a bit of a general conversation about a guy that was a critic and said he's not going to win you the game, and the reply was, but he's going to stop you losing it.
Yeah.
And he's just a volunteer that does it with almost monotonous regularity. A wonderful bloke to have on board, and to have him volunteering his services on the night was a wonderful thing for Queenslanders.
Ruben Qlder shouldn't be not mentioned either. He was very good, very good.
I saw Ruben Qlder the next morning at the team hotel. He looked like he'd gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson. He had cuts over his face. He had the black eye and everything, Yeah,
I was going to say, and the size of the bloke.
Yeah.
The guys in the opposition lineup, the size of them that he was up against, God, he's a gutsy kid. He's wonderful. He just keeps doing it every time, and I'm sure the Queenslanders are hoping he's going to be able to reproduce that.
He punches above his weight.
Oh,
yeah. And another forward, Kurt Mann, I thought was excellent on his Origin debut. I ran into his brother Joel in the dressing sheds. I think there was no happier bloke than him. He had a few 4Xs, courtesy of the Maroons. But how's his journey? So he's in Winton, and I said, mate, how did you get to Perth? So drives 2 hours from Winton to Longreach, gets on the plane from Longreach to Brisbane, hops on the plane from Brisbane to Perth. So you think it's a tough trip from Brisbane to Perth, that 6-hour flight. Shows how dedicated he was to see his brother make his debut.
For him, that's a dream come true.
Yeah.
The more remote you get in Queensland, the more they love their beer, the more they love their footy.
The further they're prepared to go, and that's a wonderful story. That's the secret to success in State of Origin footy, and the background of how far these guys go, and the people that are very important to them, their family, their friends, and they're great mates, and that's what builds the spirit of Queensland.
Yeah, similar with the Catewell clan. Mum Lynn was there and Auntie Qlder made the trip from Charleville, so they were absolutely loving it. And I think we can't understate the value of Val Holmes. Kicking those goals, majority from the sideline. You look back at the game, that's the difference.
Yeah.
His goal kicking.
He made those 2 early ones, from the sideline look easy. Yeah,
Kicking almost in a cyclone too.
Yeah.
The way it's...
you got to. I mean, if they scored more tries than us. So
Yeah.
Val.
Yeah.
Well done.
Lockie, what's it like though when you're lining up? You've had to do it in your times in the big games, but in an Origin match when you're lining up, and every goal kick is an important goal kick. But how do you go through that with that plan in your mind that I want to win the game or I don't want to lose the game?
I think it's just sticking to your process. But I think with Val when he was kicking when we were in front, there's not pressure on him there. Right?
Yeah.
But then the moment Zach misses one and then misses the second one, then all of a sudden it's like a golfer, right? They start to overthink it, and they just have an off night. And so, Zach, fortunately for us, did have an off night. Val, we didn't score a try in the second half, did we? So, I guess can't discredit what he did because that was exceptional goal kicking, but at the same time the pressure valve wasn't there for a lot of his kicks, but it was well needed.
Yeah. Val put a big hit on Liam Martin too in the first half. That was really good.
Well, that was after Liam got into Tino.
Yeah.
And then with his big sort of Joker type mouth guard. And then
Val got
him back on him. Yeah.
That was the repayment.
Yeah. I remember there was an Origin. You had to kick a goal after the siren to win. It wasn't too far. Locky.
It was on my debut.
Oh, was it on your debut? Yeah.
It
was close to the post, but you would have been nervous.
Off the sand, yeah.
Yeah.
Off the sand. I think, like I said, you just got to stick to the process and just know that there's a saying: follow the process and don't worry about the outcome. Because if you worry about the outcome as a goal kicker, you tend to look up too early.
Yeah. Okay. Well, New South Wales got a few niggles leading into Game 3. Still question marks over Nathan Cleary with the groin problem that he's had. Mitchell Moses definitely won't play. What about if Cleary's not fit, do you think Katoa could make his Origin debut for New South Wales? What would you think of that?
Yeah, I do. He's received some wonderful support over the last couple of weeks. I've heard a couple of people saying that this guy in a decade's time will be listed as one of the greatest players we've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's a massive rap to put on him. So far his performances have been extremely good. Playing for New South Wales,
we love him now. We're going to hate him in a few years' time, I reckon.
I was trying to think of a nice way of saying that for all of our viewers here. But he's obviously got some ability about him. He's got some spark, and while he's playing for the opposition, I think we wish those all the worst.
Yeah.
Oh, look, he's a talent. The question would be, could he handle a decider for his debut? He's playing at home. Look, I don't think it'll get to that. I think Nathan will be fine.
Yeah.
But he's a future Origin player, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I probably agree with you, Locky. I mean, the point about key playmaker and also goal kicker is going to be very, very important for New South Wales.
Yeah, and just the last one on Origin too. Speaking of the halves, I think Wayne Bennett summed it up perfectly on Munster. He said it was a Wally Lewis-like performance. You kind of got that vibe of like, he needed to do something. He was captain. There was a lot of pressure on him. Did you get that sense, Locky? It almost had Wally vibes.
Well, I think that's a big reason why Bill gave him the captaincy. I think just to find a bit of spark.
Yeah.
Not just in Cameron, but in the team. We got that in the first half, without a doubt. In the second half, I thought defensively he was good, came up with some big plays.
He does that tackle on Haas at the end that pops the ball through.
So sometimes the leadership in a player that can influence the result the most is a good call.
Yeah. Well, compared to Wall, you love Munster because he's a bit of a rat bag too, Wall.
Well, yeah, I like him. I think he's good. He's got plenty of rat bags.
Yeah,
plenty. And I think Locky and I had a bit of it as well, but not to that level.
Yeah.
Oh, you could see it in his eyes when he ran out.
Oh, yeah.
It was on.
Yeah.
What about how Bill's? Yeah, you go, Wall.
Sorry, I was going to say that I sent a text through about it, and it was just a simple thing about him performing through the way that he's always performed before. for Queensland, and I don't know a Queensland supporter that wouldn't be on his side 101% after that.
Yeah,
wonderful player.
Yeah, and Billy had that comment where he said, I was worried he was going to lose his captain's challenge on the coin toss. Didn't realise he couldn't do that.
That was a good line.
Yeah. He's a classic for ADHD.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we look forward to seeing Cameron Munster lift up the Origin Shield down in Sydney in Origin 3. But just quickly moving along to club footy, your Broncos are back, Locky, back-to-back wins. What's changed the past couple of weeks with those victories over the Titans and then the Sharks on the weekend?
Look, I would say... obviously, winning changes everything. Sharks, I was very worried after the first 40 minutes, though.
Yeah.
There was a lot of defensive errors.
Yeah.
It was good to see the fight back and get the win. But there's still plenty there for the Bronx to work on, in my opinion. They were very good. Who did we play? It was the Titans. They were very good that night. They had a lot to play for. Adam Reynolds' 300th, they wore the black jerseys.
Yeah.
That was a big night. They were very good that particular game. But then, even though we got the win at the Sharks, there's still plenty to improve.
Yeah. I'll be honest, Lockie, I thought we were gone half-time.
Yeah.
I thought we had no chance. We had no chance of winning this, and it was wonderful to see the recovery that they got. That was fantastic, and I think the spirit that would have injected into the team for the future games will be something that we'll measure at the end of the season. But that was a wonderful performance from them.
Well, here's the thing, a bit like Origin last Wednesday. I think the night they played the Titans, they blew them out of the park first 40.
Yeah.
Second 40 was average. Then it's the opposite. Sharks average first 40, good second 40. So they just got to. I've been saying it all year. It's just for them. It's trying to work out how they can get an 80-minute performance.
Yeah, that's definitely what they need. And mate, the Sharks have they got a record over Brisbane? A fairly impressive.
I'm not exactly sure.
They've beaten them quite a few times.
Yeah, I think they have. Yeah, in Brisbane too.
Yeah. That was hit the nail on the head there, Locky, and that was something that I thought, will they get the chance? No, I don't think they would today. And the way that they started, I thought, this is going to be a long day at the office coming up. But the recovery was fantastic. Great to watch.
Yeah. They're probably going to have to step it up another notch against the Warriors this weekend at Suncorp Stadium. But just a couple of days before that Sharks game, Lockyer, the Broncos announced that Adam Reynolds had been re-signed, Tony Staggs, also Blake Moser. What does that do as a group when you see some senior players recommit to the club?
Stability.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, particularly for the younger players, that they know that those quality, experienced players that are going to be there for a number of years. I mean, in Adam's role, it's only another year after this year, isn't it? So,
hopefully. We never know with Adam Reynolds.
We never know. So it just brings stability, and I think it just allows the club, and I think those individuals especially, particularly Adam, who had a decent offer from down south in Sydney.
Yeah.
But for his own peace of mind, his own clarity to make a decision, I think that's going to help his footy. Same with Tony.
Yeah. How important too, is it having Mam and Reece Walsh back in the team at the same time? You see them together, it means lots of points.
Yeah, it does. And I think the injection that comes along is the confidence shown by the other players. They feel that they're going to be an excellent chance of winning the game. They know that the standard of the attack that will be on display will be at a very increased level throughout the course of the game, and you can just see that level is something that is very, very standoutish, if there's a word, that can be put to, because you could just see that the way that they just worked as a team when they got into a very difficult situation. Trust your mates, put on the plays that we've been practicing throughout the course of the week, every week, and I thought that was particularly impressive. And at the end of the game, you could just see the level of self-belief for the team.
How would Michael Maguire be feeling now as opposed to a fortnight ago?
Oh, look, there's no doubt to win. We're now Broncos are into fifth.
Yeah.
But you can easily jump back to probably 14th, very quickly. So for now, it's obviously a better feeling when you're winning and you're working your way up the ladder. So it'd be a bit of a relief there for Madge, because I think he knows what the team's capable of. It's just being able to put it together every weekend for 80 minutes. But at the same time, like you got to roll the sleeves up every weekend. And you talked about the Warriors, like they'll be smarting from last weekend's loss. So this will be a tough game.
Yeah, one of the things I remember about the Warriors, they got a pretty good record against Brisbane in Brisbane. Over the years, they've created a few upsets, and it's been pretty tough. And they seem to save their best performances when they play Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium.
Yeah, Kurt Capewell will be back. He'll be the opposition this weekend against the Broncos. Another big point of contention for the Broncos, the noise that won't go away, Lockyer, is the Selwyn Cobbo contract situation. Reports he's been offered $300,000 to stay, which is less than half of his current deal. Is that disrespectful, or is that just a sign of like where his form's gone, or the club's salary cap pressures?
I think it's a combination of factors. I think we all know what Selwyn's capable of, and I think the club and Madge, I think you learn more about yourself in adversity, and I think this is a bit of a test for Selwyn at the moment. And I think this is not Madge, trying to say that your time at the Broncos is done. This is giving him a test. Yeah. And seeing how he comes out of it. And I think for Selwyn, how he comes out of this and what he learns through that process will be really important for not just now, but his future. Because we know how talented he is, and he's still learning and developing and evolving how he gets to a consistent, playing standard every week. Yeah. And that comes down to the way you train. You get consistency there. You'll get consistent performance every weekend, and I think this period in his career, Selwyn, will be good for his longevity.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Selwyn? Well,
he's a wonderfully talented player, and he just seems to have gone off the boil just a little bit. I'm not too close to him, so I don't really understand what it is about his reaction to what the coach has been asking, and just as importantly, what his teammates have been asking from him. But I know, having watched him over the last few years and been a huge fan of what he's been able to do, he's unfortunately not living up to that level at the moment, and he's probably still got plenty left in the tank. But when you get to at that stage in your career where you need to produce it to stay in the team, it's vital that you do. Otherwise, you're going to sit back in the years that follow and probably be a little bit dirty on yourself and wish that you got back to producing your best.
Well, the best way to fight his way back is just through hard work, and I think there's been words that he is working hard at that. So I guess fingers crossed just for the Broncos and for Selwyn himself that he can fight his way back into that team and play like we know he can.
Yeah. If you're a rival club, take your Broncos hat off at the moment, Lockyer, and you're trying to recruit Selwyn Cobbo, are you looking at him as a fullback, a centre, or a winger?
Well, he's so much like GI.
Yeah.
And I think GI was in the Melbourne system, so from that perspective, he was born in hard work, so to speak. So in his early years, you could put him anywhere and he would perform.
He won a comp at 6, I think.
Yeah. So I think Selwyn's another version of GI. It's just how hard he wants to work to get himself fit and strong and play to his potential. So I think if you got him fit and you got him in a good mindset, he could play fullback, centre, wing, and do a really good job for you.
Yeah, I think his best performances this season when he wasn't fullback, when Reece Walsh was out injured, he did an excellent job filling in there.
It got him more involved.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So interesting to see how that all turns out. We did an interview with Ben Hunt yesterday on 9 News. We asked him about it. He obviously said, "I hope Selwyn stays, but I understand if he leaves," because Ben Hunt did the same thing. He wanted to stay at the Broncos, but eventually had to leave. So, it's at the end of the day, it's a business, and business decisions have to be made. So, We'll see how it all turns out.
So that's a pretty good deal, Hunty got.
Yeah, I know, yeah. If Selwyn can get half of the money that Ben Hunt got, he'll be laughing. Take it back to Sherberg, rather.
Ka-ching.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to our Tab Big Call this weekend, thanks to our partner this year, Tab. Let's hit up some big calls for the week. We've got the Queensland team. So this week, it's actually a double header at Suncorp Stadium, in a way, because the Dolphins-Rabbitohs game that was supposed to be played at round 1 at Suncorp, because of the cyclone, got relocated to Sydney, so it's back. So the Broncos play the Warriors on Saturday afternoon, and then they clear out the stadium, and then the Dolphins play the Rabbitohs at Suncorp Stadium. I think you were talking to Alan Graham about it the other day, how difficult that is.
Well, I was just about to say the big call's going to have to come from the ground staff that are telling the blokes that are hiding in the toilets or in behind the canteen corner to try and get them to volunteer some honesty and say, OK, I'll leave, and if I have to, I'll pay to get in again. They face a little bit of a nightmare, and I'm sure it's going to be one of Alan Graham's not so enjoyable farewells to Suncorp Stadium that he's going to be able to clear that. That's going to be worth its weight, and we've already quite joked about it quite a bit throughout the course of the week, and it's not something that he wants at all. Yeah, that's a tough call. How do you get them all out? Come on, people.
Well, they promoted it as a double header, and I just assumed it'd be one game after the other. But obviously, there's a few logistics that are a bit trickier than what we think. With that. So we'll see. You might be right. I reckon there might be a few of the skin fell after the first game, hiding somewhere.
And tossing them out won't be as easy as what's previously been done.
Yeah, especially if the Broncos victorious. Always draw a big crowd with the Kiwi population here in southeast Queensland. So Broncos Warriors Saturday afternoon, Dolphins Rabbitohs Saturday night, and then we've got another Queensland derby on the Gold Coast.
What's your big call? Just for the record, when Salty did it, he predicted that Trindle would score a double.
Oh, for the Sharks.
Guess what happened?
Oh, he scored a double.
Trindle scored a double.
I'm under more pressure. So I'm going to stay away from the Titans-Cowboys game. That's like a...
Well, I'm going to go. That's my big call.
Okay, yep.
Titans will win.
Oh.
Titans will beat the Cowboys. It's on the Gold Coast. It's not a...
Yeah, it's on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, it's on the Gold Coast.
I think that's the Channel 9 game Sunday, Arvo.
Titans are the... they're the outsiders, but I just reckon, both teams are struggling, but I'm going to go Titans to win and Kieran Foran to score a try.
Yeah, well, I'm going for the Titans to win as well on that one, Locky. As you know, Adam, I'm a North Queensland supporter. I love watching the Cowboys over the last couple of years, but they aren't the team that they were previously, and they really do appear to be struggling to display a style of footy that they've been able to do in previous seasons. And I don't know what it is, but they've just been unable to produce the form that turned them into a quality team for so long.
Well, I'm going to stick with Salty's trend of 2 try scorer, and I'm going with Herbie. Herbie's been in pretty good try-scoring form up against Wayne Bennett's Bunnies Saturday night Suncorp. So Dolphins win that one. If they can field a team, they've got so many more injuries, the Dolphins. Might only have to name 16 players, but I'm confident they can get the job done. Herbie to score 2 tries, the Dolphins ruin Hurricane Wayne's return to Suncorp Stadium.
Okay.
There we go.
Righto.
While we're on the Dolphins, that close loss in Perth to the Knights, do you think anything in that game concern you a little bit?
Oh, look, I think a reality check. They were going so good. I think everyone predicted them to beat the Knights over there in Perth, but they were just a little bit off. They had a few injuries. Things didn't go their way, but I just think it's a nice wake-up call for them.
Yeah. I'd like to see a bit more urgency from Hammer with those kicks. So you go through, they conceded 2 grubber kick tries, and with his pace, it needs to anticipate a little bit more to get across to those kicks because they caught him out twice in that game. But you did feel bad for him at the end, dropping that bomb when that disruptor came through. But how important is this one against the Rabbitohs? Like, to make the top 8, you need to be beating teams that are lower on you on the ladder.
Well, one thing in their advantage is they're for and against. I think it's the second best in the competition, right? So they scored 166 points. Sorry. No, they scored something ridiculous. The 166 points, we'll get to that in a minute. That's how many points the Cowboys
We don't have to
played.
mention that, Locky.
No. But the Dolphins had scored a hell of a lot of points in the last month.
Yeah.
And so, for mine, they're a team that's capable of scoring points. They've just got to get their defence right. And, you know, I think the Rabbits, who are obviously down on troops, but you never underestimate Wayne.
Yeah, that's it. And there was some more injury news out of the Dolphins today too. So unfortunately, they confirmed that Jack Bostock is an ACL, so he won't play again. Which
you heard it? Did you hear the noise?
Yeah, it was like a pop or a crack or
Pop. Yeah.
And then they also told us that Felice Kafusi's undergone knee surgery, so he's out for at least another 3 weeks. So they're really short on middle forwards at the moment.
Yeah, because you take out Tom Gilbert,
Max Platt, Sigh, Flegler. Yeah, so it's like 5 middle forwards who are all essentially quality rep forwards. All of them have played Origin except Max Platt.
And that's where they've been so dominant throughout the course of the year. They've played against some of the bigger, tougher forwards in the competition, and the Dolphins, almost every game of those, have been able to take control and dictate terms to the opposition.
Yeah, but they do get a bonus. My boy Josh Kerr's back. He had hamstring tightness. I saw him at training today, so he'll add a bit. He'll add a bit of impact off the bench, Joshy Kerr, for their match against the Bunnies. Yeah, the point you alluded to earlier here, Lockyer, the Cowboys. What's happening up there in North Queensland? Conceded 166 points in their past 4 matches, especially the last 2 weeks against the Dolphins and Roosters. They've been terrible.
Well, they say defence is all about attitude, and that their defence has been woeful.
Yeah.
Now, I know they were missing their Origin players the week before, but then they had them back. I know they were backing up, but...
Yeah, Qlder didn't play, but Dearden was there,
Yeah, but it's... it's a bit scary for them because we know that, you know, to play finals and to be anywhere near the top 4, you've got to be a good defensive team. And while they've got some quality players that can score points, they need to fix their D ASAP.
That's exactly right, Locky. I've been lucky enough to be up north for a couple of those games, and it's been disappointment. And they really do appear as though they're almost questioning their own ability to be able to knock over a quality opposition. I'm sure that'll turn around. Every team seems to go through a problem part of the season, and certainly that's been the case for the boys from up north, but they desperately need to do it because confidence has always been a wonderful thing for the Cowboys. If they struggle to have that self-belief, they really struggle for the rest of the season.
Yep, so the Cowboys play the Titans this weekend on Sunday down at Seabus. Whose seat is hotter right now, Des Hasler or Todd Payten?
Well, I looked at the ladder today, and the for and against is almost identical. They're both equally the worst defensive team in the competition. And the Titans actually scored, I think, 2 more points in attack. So I think both seats are hot. Look, it's a result-driven game, and you know, unfortunately for both those coaches, that it would be unnerving and unsettling to just go through this period right now. And the winner of this game is obviously going to be very pleased. The loser is going to be very frustrated.
I think Hasler's seat is hotter than Payten's at the moment because what Payten's done the last couple of years, he got them to the finals. They've played finals 2 out of the past 3 years. I just sense since Desi's taken over from the Titans, they've gone backwards. They were doing better when Justin Holbrook was the coach.
Yeah, I guess that's a big call, and time will tell, Adam. But Des is one of those guys that, you know, I probably react to how he responds throughout the course of the game and what he's like at training sessions. He's not happy with what he sees at the moment and seems to be reacting you know, fairly comfortably at the moment, where when Des wants to blow up, he will blow up, and it'll be a considerable amount of time before he stops. But to name which one it's going to be, well, I think that it's probably going to be Payten.
Yeah. And just on the Titans, do you think missing another half is their problem? Like, they've had all that influx of fullbacks. AJ Brimson's gone back there at the moment. You know, Foran a lot of times seems to be playing a lone hand in the halves.
Well, we've talked about this for ages now. It's sort of like it's the conundrum. It's 5 of them into 4, and I mean Kinney is out at the moment. I think they miss him. But I mean, where do you put AJ, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the I mean, I've said that, and AJ probably hate me for saying this, but I've said he could potentially be like a 14 but comes on and plays a bit of hooker.
Yeah.
Because he could fix any position on the field, but I actually think he'd be quite dynamic out of dummy half.
Yeah.
So if you had, in a perfect world, Kinney comes back, then you got Foran and Campbell in the halves, and then Verrill starts the game, and then you bring AJ on as a bit of impact.
Yeah.
But AJ's probably having a conniption.
Yeah. Kind of like Connor Watson's role that he plays, like just provides a bit of spark.
AJ's got some spark about him. He's a footballer, right? So you can put him anywhere and he'll do something. But I feel like, I mean, is Kinney done for the year?
Well, we still don't know yet. So they said at least until after Origin, so probably at least another month.
Well, he was the player of the year last year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he's a bit like the Energizer Bunny at South, Jai Gray, but who's the
Trey Fuller from the Dolphins kind of thing?
Yeah, and then there's the winger at the Storm that plays fullback.
Oh, Sua Falonga,
yeah.
Very similar sort of body shapes. Last one before we go to the Cowboys made that decision to move Jackson Purdue into the halves from the centres a month or so ago. Do you think that needs to be revisited because it looks as though it hasn't quite worked?
I reckon you got to come back to what's my best defensive team.
Yeah,
and pick that.
Yeah.
Because if you're chasing like 40 points every weekend, your combinations are under pressure all the time. You're never going to be able to get a good flow or good rhythm. So I'd just be picking the best defensive team. Yeah,
you're right there, Locky. Defence wins matches. It's the backbone of the spirit that remains in the team, and certainly if you are involved in a game and you're letting tries be scored with almost monotonous regularity, the confidence in the team is certainly going to go down the drain fairly quickly. So, I agree with you 100%. That's the backbone of it.
I get the sense they play their best footy when Jake Clifford's in the halves with Dearden and then have Purdue in the centres, just in the side somewhere.
I think what you lose when you don't have Jake is that long kicking game.
Yeah.
And he's a big body too. Like, he'll miss tackles, but he's a bigger body for a half too, so he can get in there.
Because it just, even if the fullback or the wingers catch it on the full, if it's long and high, you're still getting field position out of that.
Yeah, there we go.
With the bigger body as well, he convinces the opposition to go one player either side, not take him on.
That's it, yeah. Well, thanks for your comments. And inside again, Locky and Wall, as we count down to Origin 3. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week. We'll have the teams for the Maroons that will win Game 3 decided down there in Sydney.